Knowing something about the life of an author often helps us to understand the nature of our work, although we should be careful not to make autobiographical details the sole basis of our approach to the work. In the case of Jane Austen, however, we can find many resemblances between her private world and the world of her novels. The daughter of vicar in Stevenson's parsonage, Hampshire, Jane Austen lived a quiet, cultured life in a country home. Neither she nor her sister married, but their family circle was extended by the families of their brothers. Close family ties, long-standing friendships, and gentle rivalries between neighbors, a sharing of the joys and sorrows of life and love by family and friends made up the author's world and are mirrored in the world of her fiction. Has Jane Austen advised any who aspire to become a novelist? Three or four families in a country village is the very thing to work on. Jane Austen, whose formal education ended early, began writing even before she was 12 years old. But she had to wait till she was 35 before her first novel, Sense and Sensibility, appeared in 1811. Then came Pride and Prejudice, 1813, Mansfield Park, 1814, and Emma, 1816. She died at the early age of 42, and Persuasion and Northanger Abbey were published posthumously in 1818, although Northanger Abbey had been written in the 1790s. Jane Austen lived and wrote during the period of transition from the age of reason to the age of romanticism. In fact, rationality and romanticism seem to coexist for some time on two of Austen's novels. Sense and Sensibility and Emma are beautiful reflect this duality. Sense and Sensibility, a novel based on the lives of two sisters, explores the double theme of sense personified by Eleanor Dashwood and sensibility personified by Marion Dashwood. No sense is justified while sensibility is criticized as a weakness. In Emma, the heroine's ruling weakness is her romantic nature, which is offset by that of the regional George Knightley. The marriage of George Knightley and Emma Woodhouse can be seen as symbolic of the desired balance between sense and sensibility, romance and reason. Jane Austen was the first novelist to make a break with the trend of Gothic romances that had become so popular in her time. In Northanger Abbey, she satirizes the Gothic world depicted in the novels of Anne Radcliffe. The heroine of Northanger Abbey, Catherine Morland, is puzzled of her Gothic illusions when she realizes that, charming as were all Mrs. Radcliffe's works and the works of all her imitators, it was not in them perhaps that human nature was to be looked for. Then human nature is undoubtedly Jane Austen's primary concern as a novelist. It is her concern in one of her most popular works, Pride and Prejudice, the theme of which is evident in the title itself and also in Persuasion, which studies the dual themes of pride in social possessions and vanity in personal appearance. It is also a major concern in Emma, where the character of the heroine is made up of a number of conflicting character traits, which we shall study in detail. Jane Austen may be said to resemble Samuel Richardson in her psychological insightfulness. and her ability to depict emotional conflicts. However, her skillful character delineation, sense of humor, her brilliant handling of irony, and her heart of dialogue make her a more realistic writer than Richardson, who tended to be more heavily didactic in his works. Her psychological versatility also makes her an important precursor to novelists like Henry James and William Foster. Although her novels are peopled by a variety of characters and types, we find that Jane Austen's studies of women characters are more successful than those of men, understandable in an artist whose private life was most sheltered and whose experience of a man's world was only a second-hand one, gleaned from the experience of her brothers. Two of her brothers were in the navy, and it is to them that the author owed her meager knowledge of navy life, which found representation in Mansfield Park and Persuasion. Her heroines are interesting because they are all so individual, so different from each other, and each of balance of virtues and idiosyncrasies, neither all good nor all bad. According to Andrew Wright, the novels can be considered on three levels of meanings. The first, the purely local, that is, they can be looked at as illustrative of country life among the upper middle classes in southern England at the end of the 18th century. Then second, they can be taken as a broad allegories, in which sense sensibility, pride, prejudice, and a number of other virtues and defects are set forth in narrative form and commented on in this way. Then the third one, there is the ironic level, and if Jane Austen's novels be considered in this light, then one can regard the various incidents, situations, and characters as implying something behind what they embody as symbolic rather than allegorical. Jane Austen was probably the first real artist to devote herself to a painstaking construction of her novels. Commonplace topics are explored from different points of view with a subtlety of humor and deep insightfulness. Her handling of dialogue and episode is also efficient, and her use of various types of irony truly skillful. Her works is evidence of her belief that an artist cannot do anything slovenly. Jane Austen has been criticized on two important counts. The first is that her range is too narrow. Events like the Napoleonic Wars, so crucial to the history of England, which were in progress when she wrote, are ignored in her novels, as social evils such as the slave trade and the exploitation of the working class. The novels of Jane Austen deal almost completely with the close-up circle of domestic life and the doing of country's entry. Second serious charge against her writing was first made by Charlotte Bronte on the grounds that the passions were perfectly unknown to her. It is quite true that strong emotions are hardly ever explored in her novels. She tends to deal with the more muted ones such as boredom, embarrassment, mortification, while happiness stems from domestic contentment and satisfaction through self-control and duty consciousness. Intensity of emotions are seen only rarely in her works, as when Jane Fairfax breaks off her secret engagement in Emma, or when Maria Rushworth runs off with Henry Crawford in Mansfield Park. Jane Austen's novels were not particularly popular in her own time. Readers who demanded suspense and sensationalism were bound to be disappointed by her subtitle of irony and her slow, complex developments of relationships. However, as the 19th century progressed, her reputation rose steadily until she became established as one of the major English novelists and as a woman writer who is an accessibility in the first rank. The fact that many of her novels have been turned into films in our own time is evidence of her lasting popularity, not just as a storyteller but as an observer of humanity and a commentator on the follies and foibles as a human nature that are very bit in evidence in our own times as they were in hers.